Welcome everyone. John here, staff software engineer with 10 plus years of experience. I'm the lead maintainer of Latterly.io, which is an open source educational platform that'll help you land your first or next programming role. And today I'm doing some AI-driven development. AI-driven development is a new occurrence in the software engineering ecosystem. And I will be revisiting a standard project that Latterly's been doing for years. It's called the Trial by Fire. It's the very first project that I recommend people do as part of the standard checklist, which you can sign up at Latterly.io for free, log in. If I can remember my password. You can log in, and basically the first 3 steps are join the Discord. So social first, really, really big deal. Start growing your social network on the first day that you code so that by the time you're job ready, there's people knocking down your door to give you a job. A big mistake that I see people do is they'll spend a long time coding and then they get to the job search and it's really overwhelming because it's an entirely different skill set and they need to develop the skill set of social networking and go find people, and it takes a lot longer than they expected. If their expectation was, hey, I can code now, shouldn't I get a job? Like, no. So build in public, learn in public. There's so many good reasons for this. Drop a comment if you want me to do a tangent where I talk more about this. But basically, first thing on the checklist is I recommend you join the Latterly Discord and then go through search techniques. So all other skills, whether hard skill or soft skill, whether tech related or not, are all downstream of search techniques. Even asking the question, where should I go to learn, is a search question. Which college, like if you want to go to university and go to college, which college should you go to? If you want to go to a coding boot camp, which coding boot camp should you take? If you want to work with a mentor or something like this, like which one should you take? These are, to even get a good answer to those are search questions or research questions, you might say. They involve Googling and things like this. So 2 things that I recommend you do before you even touch a line of code. And then the Trial by Fire is the very first project, and it's called the Trial by Fire. It kind of throws you in the deep end. It only takes an hour. And you touch HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and build a project that you can use. And that's why it's the Trial by Fire. Because when we learn web development, we're learning multiple skill sets, and other courses will spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks on each of these skills in order, and you never get to see the big picture. And it creates a bunch of issues. You'll find yourself as a student asking, like, why am I doing this? With this alternative approach, the Trial by Fire, you go through everything really, really quickly, and you get the big picture, and then you circle back and dive in to each module with that big picture in the back of your mind, so you always know what you're driving at. So I found this approach to be really successful, and I've updated it annually. So the Trial by Fire V2 came out 10 months ago. Today is not the official V3. This is a preliminary V3, and I'll explain why shortly. So maybe in January, February, March, there will be V3.5 to go with ChatGPT 3.5. But I wanted to do this, give you an early preview, and this will stay free. So even if I update the course later, put it behind a paywall, you'll get this early glimpse. Because this is really cutting edge. It's really cutting edge. So let's go through it. In fact, just to jump ahead, why not make it official right now? The answer is that the tools are not ready yet. So we have some tools, and we'll go through Claude, ChatGPT, some of the tools that we have, and they are limited. And we'll go through how they're limited and how to work around those limitations. Next year, they will not be equally limited. So maybe I could put out a V3, next week. Then I would have to do a V4 next year. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Drop a comment if you want me to. But my current plan is just to do this preliminary stream, and then in Q1 of next year, drop a single polished version instead of doing like 2 versions in quick turnaround. Kitty's Place said, are you streaming somewhere else? The answer is yes. Welcome in on Twitch. Shout out to my Twitch followers. I only have like 100, maybe 120, very, very few on Twitch. We're also on YouTube, lots of people on TikTok, and several other places. But hope you find this interesting. Feel free to let me know if you have a question. And I think my Twitch bio is up to date, so you should be able to get to the Latterly website if you're coming in from Twitch as well. And then join up with the hundreds of people on the Discord where wherever you come from, you'll be able to get social support if you're struggling, if you're learning. That's why it's top of the checklist. Oh, maybe I should spell it out better. You click on the community tab and there's the Discord link. Thanks for being here, Kitty. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, so let's just cut to the chase. What is AI-driven development? The approach is that you're going to use these AI tools. Today, we have some interactive chat tools. They have a variety of features. They vary by the tool that you use. So ChatGPT will have a code compiler and an image generator. It can make you a picture. It can browse the web with some limitations. You know, it won't do certain things, but it will do other things. And you play around with the prompts and you can kind of figure this out. This is this new skill set of prompt engineering that's relevant now. And I do have a course where I touch on search skills and it discusses prompt engineering. So where's that? That's going to be in one of my lives. More than 10 search techniques. It's currently free. It will be going behind a paywall soon. Check it out. That talks about search in general, more than 10 techniques, and one of them is prompt engineering. There are best practices that you can use to get these models to do things that if you just sort of speak to them in plain English, they might not understand you. Actually, they definitely won't understand you in an optimal way. And so here I've given a sample prompt to Claude. This is Sonnet 3.5. And I said, create a front-end website. I basically asked it to do the trial by fire. Make a basic blog that's a single-page blog, and it has an article that's a pre-made article that's static, and then it also has a form where you can add additional content, and a button that when you click it, it doesn't call to a server, there's no database, it just appends the article directly to the page. But here's the limitation with Claude. So it looks good, right? This looks good. And if I had a student that built this for me traditionally, this would be like a pass, provided that it worked. This is about what we're expecting to see for this trial by fire. The problem is, if I click it, it doesn't do anything. Why doesn't it do anything? Is the code wrong? Like, let's look at the code. No, the code is good. So we have all three of our friends here. We have CSS in the style tag. We have HTML right here. There's the static article. I would like this to be a div section, a little more semantic to use the section tag instead of the div tag, but it's sort of splitting hairs. Here's a nice article tag, so that is semantic. So you could make this a little better, but it's pretty good. I would expect the student to swap out Lorem Ipsum for a real article about something that they learned during this experience. Maybe it just talks a bit about why they chose certain style rules, like it's their favorite color or something. Personalize it. This is why it's interesting to me. And I would expect some differentiation. This is just black and white. I don't want everyone to make clones. So I would expect, please use your favorite background color. Stuff like that. Personalize it to you. Okay, and then the JavaScript is good. So prevent default, we're not calling the server. We're going to have a title here, body. We create an H2, which is the relevant title for the article. That's exactly what I expect. And then it is appended into the article's container. We document.getElement by ID, classic vanilla JavaScript. So it's getting a reference to this div with the article ID, articles ID, plural. And this is using insert before, which I like, because then the newer articles come up to the top. And there are some design improvements you could make, but frankly, I think this is very good. I didn't even ask it to place the form up top. Maybe, depending on your preference, you could have it up top or underneath. Do you want it's like a design question. Do you want the user's eyes to immediately be drawn to reading the first article, and then they scroll down and realize that they can add an article? Or do you want their eyes to immediately realize, oh, I can add an article here. By the way, there are some that already exist. It's a preference thing. So I think this is all good. The problem is it's in a web frame. It's in a web frame, and you don't need to know what a web frame is, except for the fact that it won't let it work is the problem. So the code is correct, but it doesn't work. And I think this sets us up for a few problems. One, this sets the student up for confusion. If they're like, hey, like, is something wrong with this code? Like, it's not working. Actually, the code is good. It just won't work in this environment. You need to take the code out of the page and put it somewhere else. Well, then the question is like, where? So there's a few workarounds. And the first thing that I would say is that this won't be a problem when agents launch. So the idea of an OpenAI has one of these agents. It's supposedly going to launch in January. We'll see if that pans out. But basically, these agents will do more than write code. They'll also like be able to go publish it. So they'll be able to help you write the code, and then they'll be able to help you publish it and actually use it. So when we get to that stage, we're really going to be able to do AI, like full AI-driven development, where I don't need to do the workaround that I'll give you later in this video. So stay tuned for that. Some of the other agents, I'll just call them out. GitHub Spark is another AI-powered tool, and it's going to be directly integrated with GitHub. It's going to be really nice. These are just some options. Next year, these are some of the agents we'll be looking for. Currently, Spark has a waitlist, and I've been on the waitlist for a while, and I haven't gotten in. And so I would feel bad like instructing you to go do this, and then you can't, right? So there's another dead end. So we have one kind of a dead end. There's a workaround. I'll get to it, but it's kind of a dead end. OpenAI agents are not out yet. Then there's the Replit agent, which works sometimes. Thanks for the rose. No degree. Thank you for being here. If you're watching on another channel, consider liking the video, whatever platform you're on. Thank you so much for being here. Consider following. So Replit agent, I've used it successfully. In under half an hour, I was able to make a ChatGPT clone, which is pretty impressive. It included server-side logic. Drop a comment or shoot me a DM if you'd like me to do a full video on that. I'm happy to. This one is available today, and I have used it, and it works sometimes. It can't do everything, right? These agents are limited. But it's another option. And then there are IDE options. So instead of starting in a web UI, I think this is really convenient and really user-friendly, student-friendly. No prior experience in coding. You can just come over to Claude and ask it this. You can just copy this, just as I've given it to you. With Cursor, you'll have to make a download, and they have a free version. I love the pro version. I'm a big, big fan of the pro version. And I use this for professional development. So not only is this good for students, this is good for like all the way up to senior engineers and beyond. Like I'm a staff engineer, and I've worked as a principal engineer before. So regardless of your level, a tool like Cursor can help you. But you need to download it, and you're going to use an IDE. So I'll show you what that looks like here in a bit. It's also going to follow what I'm calling the workaround pattern, where the AI does not publish the code for you. You work with the AI to make some code, then you're going to go over and create a GitHub account. Spoiler alert, what you do is you make a GitHub account, you make a GitHub repository, and you put the code there. So the state of AI today is that it will help you get through the trial by fire even faster, or maybe just as fast. Like maybe it's still going to take you an hour, but you'll be doing things slightly differently because you'll be prompt engineering, which you wouldn't have done a year ago, right? By the way, you can check the YouTube video description, and it will have a link to the V2 of the trial by fire. You can also access that going over here to my videos. You can search trial by fire, and there's V2, which is kind of the up-to-date one that doesn't use AI. So this is going to have you coding in VS Code, for example. You're still going to use an IDE, but you're going to use a different IDE. VS Code is open source and free. It doesn't come with AI built in. You can kind of add AI on, but that's different than the AI first approach, okay? And so why are we doing this AI for, and then so there's other alternatives to Cursor. There's one called Windsurf, and Aider. Aider is going to be another one. Super Maven, Claude Dev, okay? So you can search, some of these are really new, some are better than others, some are more proven than others, depending on who you ask. Like there's some people going around saying Windsurf is better than Cursor, and maybe it is. I reached for Cursor today. Let me know if you'd like me to do a whole video where I can do the trial by fire in all of these and just give you the side-by-side. Maybe that would be interesting. But you'll have a variety of options, but these are the things that you'll be keeping an eye out for. These are going to be some of the tools that you use in this AI first approach. And these are all intelligent IDEs. That's an integrated development editor. It's something that you download. It's not a website, okay? And so I'll just go ahead and open up Cursor. Here's Cursor. And I use this tool routinely for open source development, working on Laterally. So we'll get to this momentarily. We'll come back to Cursor. I just wanted to shout out these other options, but we're gonna end up using Cursor, basically. And why do we want to do these new tools? If they're so new, do companies even care about them? Well, Coding Jesus, shout out to Coding Jesus, went over a HackerRank report. HackerRank is a website that many companies use for interviewing. So they will give you a coding assessment and they'll send you to hackerrank.com. It's its own website. And so you can come over here to practice coding and also take interview assessments. And the HackerRank report, HackerRank declares that they are moving to an AI-first interview approach. And so this is going to be setting, we're going to see in the next few years, and I've predicted this in the past, but now we're seeing the relevant institutions start to adopt this, that they're going to be interviewing for AI skill. So this is becoming a table stakes core skill, core competency. And it's quite nice. I think to some degree today and more in the future, students who are coming into the coding world will already have experience using ChatGPT. I think university students and even high school students today are using ChatGPT for whatever reason. Here's Johnny on Kick. Thanks for being here on Kick. So hopefully this is going to be like a pretty easy way to get in. Like again, you can basically start just by prompting and get almost where you need to go. And so this will be the new approach, and there will be a degree of exploration you'll want to do. So how does the exploration work? Claude has built what I want, but what does it mean? That's going to be the way that the students are going to approach this, is like they're going to ask Claude to build something, Claude will build the thing, and then you'll need to go in retrospect and reflect on what Claude did, and maybe tinker with it and maybe revise it and improve it and personalize it. So when you come here, I totally expect you to talk further and say something like, why did you use an article tag in the HTML? What is that good for? And hopefully it talks about semantic HTML. Yeah, okay, great. It's a semantic, and then you go, well, what's semantic HTML? And so you can unpack the tool and understand it more deeply that way, and I think you should. And this would be in contrast to the previous approach where, if you go watch the Trial by Fire V2, I talk about semantic HTML before you write it, okay? And you can do both. You can do both, and that'll help you learn the content more deeply. So the question will be, as a student, what are you optimizing for? If you're optimizing to land a job as quickly as possible, then you're gonna wanna build a portfolio, start networking, start applying, okay? These AI tools will help you build a quality portfolio super quickly. But you may not learn the technology as deeply. In fact, we see research that says students who use these AI tools, they perform tasks better, but then when the AI is removed, they remember concepts worse. So there's like a bit of a dependency going on. I think that's okay. And I say, go ahead and do AI first learning anyway. Like I don't see that as a problem. But you will be sometimes sent an interview where you're not allowed to use AI, and you're gonna have to practice that. And it's going to be a pain point. But interviewing is a pain point anyway that you need to practice. So I see net, I think it's fine. And frankly, I think you just have two options now. And what are you more comfortable with? I think in the future, students will have familiarity with language tools already, so they're going to be more comfortable learning this way, which is help me build the project and then help me understand it deeply as a second step, as opposed to let's try to learn these concepts deeply and then build something as a second step. And I see this in harmony with the trial by fire mindset, which is like, let's get the big picture quickly, and then we'll circle back and drill in as needed. And you don't want to spend too much time drilling in, frankly, because your goal is to build a portfolio. The idea of mastering JavaScript is not something that's going to happen. I've been coding 10 years, I haven't mastered JavaScript. The idea of mastering HTML. So I don't think that you need to learn all of these concepts to completion. In fact, I think that it won't happen. Like even if you wanted to, you could just keep spending time and it just wouldn't happen. So I think the proper thing to do is to get to a level of sufficiency. And the way that that's going to work is, hey, I built my portfolio, I went to interview, and I started realizing at interview time that employers are asking me things that I don't fully understand. Let me circle back and drill in. And that would be the approach that I recommend. So time boxing this trial by fire as we always have, but doing it differently now. AI first, getting all the way to the interview stage, and I think you're going to be able to get there quicker now. So in the past, I think it could take you anywhere from 2 to 12 months to learn to code and build the portfolio. And then it could take you another 6 months to get an offer. And things vary by person here, but that's like a pretty normal, reasonable time frame. And I think you're going to get that portfolio done. There's no reason for it to take 12 months anymore. There's just no reason. So I think you'll start interviewing much sooner, and then you'll need to circle back and fill in the gaps that you find, which is something that you would have needed to do anyway. Juniors will often get to the interview stage and find gaps. The gaps may be slightly bigger, but I think you'll net be able to get that first offer even quickly with this AI first approach. Okay. So those are some of the reasons for adopting this new approach and how we're going to go about it at a high level. Now let's dive in. So there's two ways to do this. One, it depends how you start. So let's say I start with Claude. Now I'll go over to GitHub. You need to sign up for GitHub. It's free, whatever. Now you come over here and you create a new repository. And I'll call this Claude Trial by Fire. Trial by Fire v3 implemented with Claude. Okay, so we're creating a new repository. What is a code repository? You could just ask Claude. How can I publish this on a portfolio that other people can view? Hopefully it says GitHub. Let's see what it says. Okay, number one option is GitHub. Great. So you could just ask it. Like here it's telling you how to set up after creating your GitHub account and repository. So this is exactly correct. And then you might go, what is a code repository? You can ask Claude. I think it's giving very reasonable answers here. If it doesn't, you come over to the Discord and you can talk to humans, right? And you can still get mentorship or whatever, or peer support as needed. But this is a great overview. It is a way to save code. It's a way to save and share code. And so we call that version control. Not only can you save and share code, you can save the code, update it, and save a new version. And then you can look through your version history. Kind of like when you Control Z on a Google Doc and you undo, redo. It's like that for an entire code base as opposed to a single file. Okay, so I think Claude is doing a perfectly adequate job here of walking you through. Let's see if it knows about Latterly. I bet it doesn't. What would Latterly.io recommend? Good. Okay, so here you see Claude starts to fall down. And this is why you might want to go over to Latterly.io and check out the 24/7 support with an AI chat. This is using a custom GPT, but it is contextualized with Latterly recommended practices. And basically, the answer here is that Latterly recommends that you use GitHub. If you're confused about, oh, there's like different options, which one do I pick? Latterly is going to say use GitHub. These all could work. They're all fine. Don't let it be something that you get stuck on. Okay, so we make this new repository. Let's add a README. This git ignore doesn't matter too much, but I'll choose the MIT license, which is an open source license, and I'll choose Node for my git ignore. Okay, I'll make this a public repository. You want it to be public so that you can show it to employers at the end of the day after it's working. Okay, and now I can clone down my repository. Again, Claude was telling me how to do this, but I've done this so many times that it's like almost a muscle memory for me. But this is how you do it. You click code over here, click this button. I'll recommend that you use git bash rather than PowerShell, or if you're on Mac, you can just use ordinary bash or zish. These are terminals. And so you can see how we're working around just using the website. I'm not going to be able to just use the website in November or December of 2024. The possible exception is if I use that replit agent, which would be fine. But you're still going to generally want to use an IDE. So here I will go to my workspace. I recommend everyone make a workspace folder under their home folder. And so your home folder will be like your user folder. It's often given this tilde symbol. I can show this to you on like how to get there through the Windows File Explorer if you're unfamiliar with the terminal. So I can go to my Windows Home, I can say this PC, go to my C drive, go to users, find John. John is my specific username, and this is my user's home folder. So this John is the same thing as this tilde. And you can see if I ask the terminal what is the full name of my present working directory, it's users John workspace. Okay, so here in this John folder, you could right click and create a new folder called workspace. Here mine already exists. And so this is where I'm going to be cloning the GitHub repository. So cloning it means that you're copying it, basically. Once I copy it, or once I clone it, I can now go put code here and I can send it to GitHub, and that's going to be the way that I get this website viewed by other people. And I can add it to my resume and say, hey, look, here's the link to my portfolio. That's what we're actually going for here. I couldn't give an employer a link to here. This would not impress an employer. I'll leave it at that. This just wouldn't impress an employer. Okay, so here I am. I have this folder. It's got like this stuff, but it doesn't have the code. Okay, so now I'm going to chat with Claude. And I'll say, and it already told me. It says I want to add index.html. And that's true. And if I was new, I would say, why use the term index.html? It's a web development convention. And then you can pull the thread as much as you want. Like, what's a web development convention? What is that? It's just, what this means is it's the normal way we do things. That's what it means when we say convention, as opposed to a technical requirement. So there are requirements in program, and there are errors, right? If something is required and you do it wrong, it could create an error. But then there are also conventions. And what a convention means is there might be multiple ways of doing something, but one of them is like normal. That's what we mean by a web development convention. And you can see it gives an example of how this web page might work. And in this case, there's an index, an about page, and a blog page. So I'll say make the about page as well. It should say that this is the trial by fire v3 based on the open source latterly.io curriculum. And the about page should include a link to https:// Also mention that the website belongs to John Vandeveer and include a link to my LinkedIn. Okay, so I can get a link to my LinkedIn on this about page. So I'm going to take the code. Well, now it's generating the next page, so I'll wait for it to complete on that. And then you might say like, change the background color to be light blue or something like that. So you can work with it to adjust the style. So here Claude is explaining what it did. It's pretty clear to me, but if it's your first time going through, you would just read through it and also read through the code and make sure it looks the way that you want, right? I think this looks fine. You could work with it to adjust as needed, but I'm just going to copy it as it is. So I'll come over here to the code and I'll copy all of it. Now, Claude already mentioned I should make an about folder with a new index inside of that folder. I'm going to ignore this blog bit. Okay, so here in Claude, I'll have index.html. And then I'll have a new folder, and I will call this about. And I'll make a new file, index.html, inside of that folder. And you'll get to see the way this works. Basically, the index files, you don't need to mention them in your browser. So if I say like mywebsite.com/about, and that's just the whole website, what's actually showing up is the index file. That's why we use these index files. Again, Claude already mentioned that, but I'm sort of reiterating here. Okay, so here's my about page. And here is the index page. So I'll copy all of this. So I've saved it. When I first paste it, you'll notice the white circle. That means it hasn't been saved yet. So after I paste it, I'll do Control S. And you could change this if you wanted to. So how do I view this on my own computer? Here's the crazy thing you may not understand if you're new to coding. I can take this file right into my browser. Oops, maybe not like that. I can take this file right into my browser. This is how websites work. This is how web pages work. They're just text files that have a special extension .html, which is hypertext markup language. It's hypertext because it's more than plain text. It's text with CSS and JavaScript. Okay. In browsers, web browsers like Chrome and Internet Explorer and Firefox, they understand how to read this and change it into the picture you see here. That's what browsers do. And now I can click the about. Oh no, there's a problem. So this is a problem in the code. So I could describe the problem to Claude and it will be able to fix it. Let me not do a picture. I think you can upload pictures to Claude, but let me not. So I'll say there's an issue if I click the about link on the homepage. I get sent to, which is invalid. Okay, so the way that you fix this, we just talked about the fact that you don't need to say about.html. If it's in the folder with the index, you would just say about. So Claude is going to go fix that, but we already know the fix. Oh, I guess it doesn't work on the C drive. Yeah, this is a fun rabbit trail for you to chase down. If you're interested, I'll skip over it, but basically the file here is a little bit different than the HTTPS thing. So if you're using file, I guess you do need to put the index.html. I wonder if the slash alone would fix it. Probably not. Let's see. Okay, you can put the index if you want to. It doesn't hurt anything. Like, I wouldn't do that. Oh, file couldn't be accessed. What's going on here? About/index. I actually don't know why it's taking me there instead of to the index.html. Let's check this out. Yeah, it says about. Is it a caching issue? Okay. I know what's going on. Okay, so what's going on is I was on the wrong page. So here I'm on the home page. If I click about, I fixed that one. But now I'm on the about page and I didn't fix that one. Okay. So here's the home page. Now let me go to the about page. There's a different about over here. And that one needs to say about/index.html as well. Let's see if that fixes it. And now it's giving two abouts. Yeah, so this needs to be relative to the base of the home page. That's fun. How do I explain that one? Yeah. Okay, I guess I just need to explain relative links. That's not too bad. So if you see I'm inside of a folder, homepage doesn't just go to index anymore. It goes to up a folder and that folder's index. Okay, does that make sense? Similarly, from the perspective of the homepage, I go into a folder, but from the perspective of this page, I'm not going into a folder. I'm going up a folder and then into the about folder. And so the way I express that is with this ... syntax. That's called a relative link. So it's relative to where I'm currently at. Currently, I'm in the about folder. Okay, so you could, you could do this HTTP server thing if you want, and that will let you do the HTTPS instead of the file thing that I mentioned. Those both work just fine. But I think this works just fine, so I'll just continue. Valids says, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one with 21 tabs open. Yeah, absolutely. Welcome in. Good to see you here. Okay. So I've got this basic website, and now what I want to do is I want to save it. So I can go over here and use the source control tab. So this Y-shaped sort of thing is a source control graph icon. You could also go in the terminal and use git stage. And the period means stage everything. Now I can say git status, and it will stage everything that's changed. Staging means I'm about to send it to GitHub. So it's kind of like before you officially send it, you're getting ready to send it. Now I will commit, and this committing means sending it. So I'll git commit index and about pages. And then I will git push it. So what I did when I committed it is I saved it, but I saved it on my computer. Now I want to push it to GitHub. Now when I go to GitHub, this is how it previously was. There's no index. Now if I refresh the page, now I can see the index in the about folder, right? Okay, so I've made my first git commit. Like we're 35 minutes in, and I've done a lot of editorializing. If you cut out all that and you focused on the coding itself, you would have done your first code commit and started building your portfolio in about 15 minutes. But I would like an employer, so this is kind of like the bare minimum. You can send your employer to GitHub on your resume. You can say like, hey, go look at my portfolio and give them a GitHub link. But it would be better if I could give them like a deployed website. So this would be a deployed website. And that's what I'd like to do. So we'll go back to Claude. I'm gonna want to use GitHub Pages. Let's see if Claude can pick up this. I've committed my code to GitHub. How can I deploy this for an employer to see on my resume? And the answer should be GitHub Pages, which is a free option for static hosting that works well with GitHub. Great. Good job, Claude. Okay, so let's see the instructions. Go to your GitHub settings, go to the Pages on the left side menu, and select your branch, probably main or master. We can see, by the way, that I am using main here, so it was right. So this is called the branch. When you have multiple developers working on different things, they'll have different branches so that when someone else pushes code, they don't like override your code. So this is the main branch. Hypothetically, if more developers were working on this website, they might make different branches. But the one that I want to deploy is this main branch. So I'll go to settings, and then I'll look for Pages on the left. There it is. And here you can see build and deploy. Let's deploy from a branch. That looks good. Then GitHub is saying, okay, which branch? Let's pick main. And it lists all the branches, but we only have one right now. But if there were a bunch, you could pick a different one if you want. And so I've picked the branch. Now which folder? I'll pick the root folder. What's the root folder? The root folder is this folder before I click About. It's the top level folder. On my local computer, it is the Claude TBF folder. So this is the root folder. And you can see I'm seeing the same thing between these two. Does that make sense? Okay, so here we are. I'll leave it at root and I'll hit save. And there you go. Now we just got to wait a minute. And if we wait a minute, it should deploy. Let's see. How can I see where it got deployed? Maybe I'll just wait 30 seconds and refresh the page. Okay, so I've refreshed the page now. I'm not seeing it. Let's see. Well, it should be deployed now, but how do I know where to go? So what you could do, you could go to Google and say, how to view deployed GitHub Pages website. Okay, you could do this and it will give you, this is also AI driven. Now Google search results are AI driven. This is the answer, by the way. And you could also look through the websites and you could figure it out. Or, I think Claude has already told me, wait a few minutes and your site will be live here. So isn't that funny? Google and Claude are doing better than GitHub itself at providing that instruction, unless I just missed it. What's my username? My username is Vandeveer. And then my repository name is Claude TBF, Trial by Fire. And you can see now I have a deployed form of the website. And it would be better to put this on my resume. I don't know if it would be better. Here's what I would do. On this repository page, there's a gear icon. You can click that and you can add the website here. So I would probably put this on my resume. So the employer can see the code if they want to, or they can go over here and see the deployed form. Now, what I actually do is the reverse. I put a link to my GitHub on the deployed form. And so if you go to my actual portfolio, which this is available in my bio, it's also open source, so you can copy it if you'd like to. My Windows thing here is like covering it up. Let's see if I can get rid of that. What is this called? Toolbar? Taskbar maybe? Task? Yeah, taskbar settings. I thought I had this thing set to hide already. Taskbar behavior, automatically hide. It's set to automatically hide, but it's not doing a good job, is it? So I'll shrink this web page so you can see the bottom of the web page. Like this website, check out the open source code here, and it takes you, so do you see how that, I actually have it both ways. So you can go from GitHub to the website or from the website to GitHub. I recommend that for you. I also do that for Laterally itself. So Laterally, if you scroll to the bottom, you can get to the GitHub, and then from GitHub, you can get to the website. I think that's the best way to do it. But that requires you to update your code to mention GitHub. In the absence of that code change, if I had to pick one, I would put this on my website or on my resume, because this shows the employer I actually wrote some code. Okay, and I'll pause there. So that does it for this video. This video has been under 45 minutes. So this is shorter than the other trial by fires. I think that demonstrates that an AI-driven workflow is faster, and you can chat with the AI to understand the code more deeply, which is something that would have taken like Google searches and like going through many pages in an older world where we don't have these AI tools. Trying to understand like, why should I use the article tag? Or maybe you would not even know to use the article tag. You would just go with a div or something else that you found in a tutorial somewhere. So I think this speeds things up, and you can drill in to understand further as you need here. Again, this is not AI only. It's AI driven. It's AI first. You will run into cases where the language model makes a mistake. It gets confused, or it doesn't know an answer. And that's where going to the social community is going to be helpful, or referring to the search techniques video, where maybe you do end up going back to Google searching. That's another one of these techniques, but there's more than 10 search techniques. I'll bring up the video one more time. Search techniques. Okay. It's the second one here. You could watch the first one. That's fine too. But the second one has even more, I think. I think this first one only has like 4 of them. But in any case, the point is, we are starting with AI, but we're not limiting ourselves to AI. And we are starting with the code it gives us, but we're not limiting ourselves to the code it gives us. When it gives us code, we want to understand why, ask why. That keyword why is going to help you understand things more deeply. Time box that investigation, because the goal is not to understand all of programming. The goal is to get a job, build a portfolio, get a job. So do that until you feel that you know a fair enough answer, and use this mental model. If I were in an interview discussion, if someone asked me how and why I built my website, I can give an adequate answer. And you could even do 3 or 5 levels. So there's something called the 5 whys, which is common in programming. If you get an error on a production website, this framework helps us prevent that from occurring again. So you don't just ask why once, you ask why into 5 levels. I think you can get away with 3. Practically in an interview setting, the interviewer can ask you like, why did you do this? You give them an answer. They might give you a follow-up. In a rare case, they might give you a second follow-up. I can't recall anyone doing like 3 or 4 or 5 follow-ups. So in a professional environment, when you're on the job, and if you're trying to prevent an issue from occurring again, if you're like understanding how you run into an error on your website and you want to understand why it happened and also how you can prevent it from happening again, 5 whys is pretty common. But for interview prep, I think you can get away with 3 whys. What you don't want to do, what you really, really want to avoid, is having 0 whys. So someone asks you like, why did you choose Claude? And you're like, I don't know. Here's a good answer. Why did you choose Claude? I had prior experience with Claude. I used Claude before I got into programming. There's a good reason. Or I tried Claude and I tried a couple other options. I tried Google Gemini. I tried the Replit agent. I tried ChatGPT. And I found that Claude was giving me answers that made sense to me. And so it made my life easier, right? So that's why I've built a level of trust with Claude. I think that's also a reasonable answer. If you can compare and contrast alternatives, that's basically meeting the bar of, in some cases, a mid-level developer, let alone a junior. As a junior, sometimes you can get away with, I don't know, I ran into a tutorial and I tried it and it worked. Sometimes you can get away with that. It's not a glowing answer, but if you're a junior, sometimes the interviewer will be like, okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, they're a junior. By mid-level and definitely by senior, you need to be able to show more than just that one level of understanding. You want to be able to compare and contrast different frameworks, different tools, and give a reasonable answer that goes to that level of compare contrast. So ergonomics, or what's comfortable, is one reason you might do it. Trust is another reason you might do it. Cost is another reason you might do it. And this is not a wimpy answer. So I think some juniors may be intimidated to say, why did you choose to host on GitHub Pages? Well, it integrates with GitHub and it's free. Should I be nervous about saying it's free? No, that's a great answer. If you're a super senior developer, making sure that your costs are low for your company is a really green flag. It's actually a really strong reason to choose the tool. Is if it does the job, and it's cheap. If it does the job and it's cheap. As you get more senior, there's also this concept of future-proofing and flexibility, maintainability. Those are pretty much synonyms for the purpose of this conversation. It does the job you're doing today, but what about the things you'll need to do later? So I have this website, but how might I change the website? So that sort of forward thinking is actually a senior level skill, because you want to strike a balance between, I can do anything in the whole world. Well, that's not reasonable. You want to be able to understand the likely upcoming use cases and plan for them. And that is right-sized future-proofing as opposed to over-engineering, where you might be introducing more tools for things that could happen, but practically you're not going to need them. That's a sign of over-engineering. So being able to strike the balance between future-proofing but not over-engineering is actually like a senior level skill. So just to recap, if it works is like an okay junior answer. Comparing and contrasting different options and making note of their engineering qualities, which include cost, performance, trust is an engineering quality, and then familiarity. Those are like good reasons at the mid-level. And then at the senior level, you want to start thinking about at the level of the architecture. But you don't need to worry about that as someone who's new to programming.